Hello, everyone. This is Darrell with MergeWorks, and welcome to our acoustic workshop for dealers. We're going to spend some time this morning talking about acoustics and what an opportunity that it presents to all of us in the marketplace. The elements of our workshop this morning are going to be probably primarily threefold. We're going to be building knowledge, rudimentary understanding of what acoustics is, applying some of that knowledge to our world in the contract furniture world and interiors. And lastly, and most importantly, crafting solutions. How do we take all the things that we've learned and everything that we know and build solutions for our clients? Our goal, our bottom line is we want to help you find and capitalize on new opportunities in the worlds of acoustics with your clients, and at the end of the day, make more money. So let's set the stage real quick. There's been an awful lot of studies done, a lot of them pre-COVID, on the workplace, the future of the workplace, and what makes workplaces tick. And I grabbed this one from Gensler in 2019, again, pre-COVID. And I won't read the slides to you, but there's an awful lot of statistics on how unhappy people are with the current state, how noisy their offices are. And as you can tell, that there's a lot of opportunities to improve the working environments for our folks. And the one statistic that really jumped off of the page to me is this one, especially in the day and age where finding and keeping really good qualified people is getting harder and harder. 50% of all the prospective employees say that their perception of how noisy an office is affects significantly their decision on whether or not to join a company. So from an end user standpoint, getting their arms around acoustics and making their work environments more acoustically comfortable is really, really important. A lot of the current challenges can be traced to our friends over in the design community. They've created some incredibly gorgeous spaces, but they've also taken a minimalist approach towards soft surfaces, carpeting, walls, ceilings. And a lot of these places, although they're great looking, they're eye candy, they're also echo chambers. And that's when we tend to get the call. We know that our design friends tend to look towards the Well Building Institute for guidelines on how to build, furnish, and design really effective workplaces. It's important to know that the Well Building has dedicated over 7 full chapters to interior sound. And they're not alone. 2 other standards organizations, ASTM and ISO, have also dedicated portions of their standard fixing and creating to interior sound. A lot of you may know ISO from their 9000 and ISO 9001 manufacturing standards. So there's an awful lot of attention right now being paid towards the quality of interior sound. So the bottom line to all of this is that we recognize sound is a big deal. We've also recognized that sound is a problem in the current workspaces. And I believe that every problem is an opportunity. And so we want to capitalize that going forward. Let's start with a basic understanding of sound. We're going to try to lay a baseline of understanding what sound is so that we have a better idea on how to manage it. In a very basic form, sound is energy. It's molecules bumping into each other and transferring that energy from one to the other. But sound is energy. And our friend Al, who's now running a chain of bagel stores around the country, said quite a while ago that we can't create or destroy energy. We can simply change it from one form to another. And that's going to be key as we go forward to understanding how to provide acoustic comfort and manage sound in the office. Sound, as far as for the purposes of this conversation, has 3 primary components. Volume, on how loud things are. It's also a good designator of how much energy is in that sound wave. And we measure sound or volume by decibels. And you've heard that before. Pitch has to do with how low or how high a sound is, and we measure that in frequency. It's also a good way to determine what materials are best suited for acoustic paneling. Some fabrics and materials do better at certain frequency ranges than others. And finally, speed. We know that sound travels very quickly, but for the purpose of this conversation, we're going to be talking about it in reverb time, which is a way to measure echo. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So volume, pitch, and speed are the primary components that we're going to be dealing with when we understand acoustics. A couple of very important measures that I want us to get really comfortable with One has to do an awful lot with our business, and the other is not. But the first one is NRC, noise reduction coefficient. And this is a measure of how well does something absorb sound. How well does something absorb sound? And the scale is from 0 to 1.0. Now, you may run across some materials with a 1.2 or 1.4 NRC rating, and that's called marketing. The scale only goes to 1. And by the way, the higher the rating, the more effective a material is in absorbing sound. So 1 is better than 0.1. STC is a measure of sound transmission class. It's a measure of how well does something block sound. Thick pane of glass is a great example here. A thick pane of glass does a great job of blocking sound from one room to another or one space to another, but it's got a very low NRC rating. It absorbs almost nothing. So think of a pane of glass when you're looking to compare STC and NRC. You know, there are 3 other measurements out there that get bantered about less and less frequently anymore. First is CAC, the ceiling attenuation class. And since we're ripping ceilings out of most offices these days anyway, and the big guys like Armstrong are tending to lean back towards NRC and STC, but you may hear somebody ask you about a CAC of a product, and unless they're putting it in the ceiling, that's just not the right application. SPL is a very technical measure of how well does white noise use, how well does white noise block sound. And the last is NIC, noise isolation class. And this is an old measure that's getting some new life by the modular wall guys, the Dirts and the Falks of the world. But it's a measure of sound between 2 enclosed spaces. But I just wanted you to be aware that there are 3 others that may pop up from time to time that have really very little to do with our world. The 2 primary ones we need to be concerned with are NRC and STC. Managing sound. All right, so let's talk about sound, the sound energy, the sound wave. What happens when it encounters a surface? And it is one of these 4 primary things. It either transitions through all of it or some of it. Think a screen door. Sound will transition right through that versus a sliding glass door, a very thick glass. So sound energy moves either through it, all, or a portion of it. It's absorbed by it, all of the energy or a portion of it. It's reflected off. There's that pane of glass again. And last is diffused. We use angular body panels to bounce the sound off in a different direction from where it came. Think stealth fighter. If you can visualize one of those angled body panels, it's really designed to angle away the radar energy away from the site that it emitted it from, so that it doesn't either paint a target or paints a really small one if it does. So anyway, sound either goes through, it's absorbed by, reflected off, or diffused away from solid surfaces. Energy, pitch, and speed also play a big portion of that. The louder the sound, the more energy there is, and the better likely it would to transition through, let's say, a solid wall than a sound that's very quiet. In our world, we're going to primarily be concerned with 2 types of sound. We're going to be concerned about sounds moving from one space to another, from one private office to another, a conference room to a lobby. And the other aspect of sound is going to be echo or reverb. And that's the one that we're primarily going to be concerned about. But both of these will play a part in our world going forward. I've been doing acoustics for a better part of 10 years, and I wanted to share with you how a lot of these calls tend to come in to me, so you recognize them for what they are. Each one of them is an opportunity to go visit with a client and start to work on selling them some acoustic solutions. You know, this is by far the most frequent one that I get. Hi, I need some white noise in my office. And as we'll learn, that's wrong on a number of different levels, but I typically would get this more than half of the time. You know, I also get, hey, our boardroom's right off the lobby. We've been in those places, and people sitting in reception can hear everything going on, and that's way wrong. We just moved into a new space, open plan. We can hear conversations happening all over the place. I need help. Our conference rooms are so echoey that they can't be used. We just worked with a client who moved into a new space, and they had 12 conference rooms, and every one of them was so echoey they couldn't hardly be used. Everything being said in an exam room can be heard in the ones next to it. We've all been there. And lastly, and I want to talk a little bit about this towards the end of the presentation, on restaurants are so loud that no one wants to come anymore. I want to recognize those as possible targets possible clients. So I want us to get real comfortable with the ABCs of sound management. As we walk in and we become acoustic experts, we really want to go through this litany in our head of ABCs, like the old Jackson 5 song, ABC. So when we're talking with clients, the very first thing we're going to talk about is the A, the absorbing echo or reflected sound or reverb. How well can we absorb? And is the problem or challenge that our client's facing one of echo? The B stands for blocking. And how well does something block sound? Is the primary challenge the client has is blocking sound moving from the conference room to the lobby or private office to a private, or jet noise going over the top. And the C stands for covering, which is also basically white noise. And we'll talk about each one of those in turn. Let's talk first about sound blocking, and that's the preventing sound moving from one space to another. And although here's a nice graphic to kind of show you what we're talking about, sound moving through walls, over ceilings. The bottom line that since we need to construct barriers, oftentimes this is best handled by general contractors or property owners. So although sound blocking can be a major challenge for a lot of our clients, somebody else is better equipped to handle that. Now, that doesn't mean that since this is our world, we sell open plan systems, cubicles, and we get clients moving into them, that there aren't methodologies and applications that we can help them, quote, block sound from Jerry over in the corner placing his sports bets that everybody can overhear. And the primary method of providing sound blocking, not the right word, but we'll use it in this tense, is a combination of acoustic noise reductions. And again, we're looking at the carpeting and the walls and the furniture. So there are methods to do that, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. Let's talk about the C, the sound covering, basically white noise. And white noise is the ability or the attempt to raise the ambient background noise to the point where individual words are not distinguishable. So think of you're in your office, commercial space, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and the HVAC stops running, or you go in on the weekend and it's not running at all. The offices get really eerie, don't they? You can hear everything that's going on. So white noise is this attempt to raise that background ambient noise, and they use hiss or static being broadcast throughout the facility to disguise the individual words. And this graphic basically is showing that although you can hear conversations going on, if we're using white noise correctly, and it can be zoned and volume adjusted, you can't hear what's going on. So that attorney that would call you and say, "Hi, I need white noise in my office," really didn't know what he was talking about. They may need white noise in the hallway, but they didn't need to raise the background ambient noise in his office, which means they would need to speak louder. And it's done with a series of emitters, these little speakers that you've seen around, whether they're poking through ACT tiles or cans hung in the plenum and those spaces without ceilings. And it really gets to be a fairly sophisticated application. There's some sound masking, there's cables that need to be run, energy, there's boxes that need to put in the IT rack. So although I know an awful lot of dealers have tipped their toes in white noise, the best thing to do is to partner with somebody who can offer it and has got the ability to handle not only day one, but day two concerns, because they tend to happen. So that's white noise. The other interesting aspect you're going to hear in our industry is great at making up kind of new phrases and terms is pink noise. And pink noise basically is the ability not only to broadcast static, but we're now, instead of using these small emitters, we're using full-size speakers, and they have the fidelity range to broadcast music, other sounds, babbling brooks, and paging, typically, that they're tied into. So that's what pink noise means. It's just a play on this whole white noise practice. All right, so here's our stock and trade. The ability to absorb echo, to eliminate reverb. And in fact, our friends over at Well Building say that it is the single most important factor to achieving acoustic comfort, and that's the elimination of echo in any space. And you're going to hear acousticians or wonks in the industry use the term RT. And that really stands for reverb time. And it's the measure actually of echo. There's some very sophisticated equipment that's designed to measure echo. And they will use the term RT. Believe it or not, well built in ASTM and ISO have got standards for RT in a variety of different spaces. It's different than for a private office than it is in a conference room, than it is in a cafeteria, than it is in a gymnasium. But believe it or not, someone's gone to the extent of setting RT standards, international standards for every one of these spaces. So let's try to understand echo a little bit better. And I love this graphic because it'll demonstrate to us what exactly echo is. So when you hear a sound, whether it be from an electronic speaker or from a human speaker, you're hearing it directly from the source. And that is represented by the green line, and it's labeled direct sound. But you're also hearing that sound being reflected off of tabletops, walls, ceilings, floors, heck, other people. And that's represented by both the blue and the red line. And a couple of things that we laid on early on about sound being energy. Every reflection takes a little bit of the energy away from the sound wave. And that's tried to be depicted by, you see that red line, how every time it bounces, the line gets a little bit thinner. And what we're trying to do is depict there the loss of energy. That's why if you could picture yourself on the edge of the Grand Canyon and yell, hello, it comes back, hello, 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 of less volume, and it takes longer to get back to your ear. It's a great representation of how echo works. It's called late reflection. The other thing that we should pop out on this is the hard surfaces represented by the black box. If we can create soft surfaces where that energy wave impacts and we can absorb more of it than reflect it, then we can help to defeat echo or reverb. Here's another way of taking a look at it. If you take a basketball and you bounce it off a hard surface, whether it be concrete, asphalt, or hardwood, you recognize that ball will come back up with about the same amount of energy that you tossed it down with. Bounce it on grass, a little less, and try bouncing off a pillow. If it comes back at all, it hardly will. And what we're trying to show here is the effect on the surfaces on the energy. And the energy is represented by the bounce of the ball. So on hard surfaces, boom, it comes right back up. On soft surfaces, such as a pillow, it hardly comes up at all. So this is a great way to visualize what we're trying to accomplish with acoustic panels. So let's get an understanding of how these acoustic panels work. Contrary to popular belief, there's not little off-duty Keebler elves inside there eating sound. What's actually happening is we're using our bagel buddies' theory of converting energy. We're converting it from sound energy. It strikes the panels. It vibrates the fibers that the panels are made out of. That vibration causes them to rub up against each other, just like you would with your hands on a cold morning. And that friction causes heat, warms them up. The fibers warm up, and then that heat is dissipated through the entire panel. That explains why some materials, fiberglass, polyester, PET, work better as acoustic panels than, let's say, wood or cotton or felt. Again, we're picking materials that are very efficient in changing sound energy into vibration and into heat and then dissipating that away. But basically, that's how acoustic panels work. I want to revisit this because it's very important to set expectations with your clients, and I want to make sure that we understand what business that we're in. When we are talking about acoustic challenges in the office, our business in stock and trade is the elimination of echo and reverb. It's absorption. So our business is NRC. The concern about blocking sound is very real. And we've talked about the best way to do that is the construction of barriers. And that's a high STC requirement. And that typically is best left to others. Again, our business is NRC. All right, deep breath. We'll now start to convert some of this theory about sound and acoustics into common practice. So let's turn some of these opportunities into wins. And this has been true for the last 30 or 40 years. When we walk into a space, this is the hierarchy of practices, if you will, applications to increase the acoustic comfort. And the first is what's on the floor. Carpeting on the floor. Are the woods polished concrete? Are they wood? Second is on the ceiling. What's in the ceiling? Is there an ACT, a drop ceiling? How much metal is in that drop ceiling with vents and grates and lights? Or is there no ceiling at all? Is the plenum wood or is it metal? The next consideration are the walls. Are the walls brick, concrete, drywall, glass? What's the construction of the wall material and last furniture? For a lot of us who've been in the business a long time, we used to sell really high cubicle panels. All those panels had STC and NRC ratings, ironically enough. But panels have become an endangered species lately. There are hardly any of them in there at all. And those that reach much more than a foot or two above work surface level, 40, 42, are really uncommon. So last consideration would be, are there any furniture concerns that would help block or absorb sound? This also is a great hierarchy of where we can apply some of our acoustic materials. Can we apply them to freestanding on the floor, let's say, or can we mount them and suspend them off the ceiling? Can we attach them to walls? And lastly, can we affix furniture pieces with acoustic panels? Let's talk about the world that we tend to work in. The first is open plan. By the very nature of it, we tend to have open sight lines for collaboration, high density footprints, and that leaves us to only a couple of applications for acoustic materials. Typically, the ceiling is of high priority with baffles and suspended panels. Freestanding is another great application where we're taking screens of highly rated acoustic materials, then move them around. And the wall, great way to attach tiles and designs and those type of things. Common areas. It's a more and more common, no pun intended, call that we get because of the very nature of the space. The hardwood floors for cleanability are common, but oftentimes, meetings are happening there, interviews are happening there, spontaneous get-togethers, and we know these spaces are very noisy. So oftentimes we get called in to damp down the reverb or the echo, and that only leaves us a couple places where we can attach our acoustic materials, ceilings and walls being the first and second options. We've also been introducing a great number of freestanding acoustic screens to not only provide some acoustic privacy, but also some visual privacy as more and more interviews are being happening in these informal spaces. Lobbies and reception areas, there's two sides to this. There's the building lobby, and typically they've been done to impress. They have a great aesthetic to them, and they typically are very, very noisy. We've been in all of these. The ones that we tend to operate in more are business lobbies and reception areas. These are places where interviews will be held, informal meetings will be held, people will be waiting for appointments are being held. Oftentimes there are a conference room immediately adjacent, and we get called in to help improve the acoustics of the space, not only the echo and the reverb, but also if there's a way to capture some of the sound in some of these smaller conference rooms. Ceiling mounted designs are really popular, as are wall tiles, where we can introduce a high degree of color, some aesthetics, and even do some logos and wayfinding in these spaces. Without a doubt, conference rooms are the most popular place where we get called in to bring acoustic comfort. And I love the conference room with the little fish in it. MergeWorks has got the unique ability to carve our acoustic panels into almost any design that is needed. So in this case, goldfish, they could be kitty cats, puppy dogs, snowflakes, palm trees. A great way to customize and bring a lot of character to these spaces. The other thing I want to call your attention to is the placement of acoustic tiles around and adjacent to TVs or the flat screens. In this world of ever increasing video conferencing, most of our conversations, our voices are directed at that flat screen. And if we can put a lot of our acoustic material around that where our voices are going to be directed, it's much more efficient. So those are the two takeaways from our conference rooms, learning environments. A lot of you already have clients in education. And although the NEA has published a lot of acoustic standards, the challenge has been to be able to do that cost effectively. And quite frankly, I've been more successful in the private K through 12 and at the university level than I have in the public school arena. Not that there isn't the need, there typically isn't the funding. So it's a great way to introduce fun and bold designs, whether they be mountains or pine trees or baffles hung from the ceiling. It's a great way and a great opportunity to be very cost effective and improve the learning environments that are out there. Healthcare is another area with HIPAA considerations that there's an awful lot of attention being paid to acoustics. The challenge has been, given the nature of the business, um, how to introduce acoustic comfort to patient areas. A lot of recent studies have shown that the quieter the space, the lower the anxiety, the quicker the healing, and those type of things. And so we have had some success introducing acoustic tiles into patient areas. Now, the other side of the hospital, the carpeted side, is treated just like a giant business. And we all know basically how to do that. And we've talked about that. The challenge has been with our healthcare clients to introduce acoustic comfort, acoustic mitigation in the patient areas on the tile. So here are a couple of good examples of what that might look like going forward. Restaurants. So I want to encourage you to take a look at restaurants as being possible customers. We've done a number of really nice, large hospitality and restaurant projects. And if you've been in those places and are concerned or are curious as to other people's thoughts on how noisy they are, pull down their Yelp reviews. Chefs, particularly those that own their own restaurants, are very sensitive people, and they're very concerned about criticism of the restaurant. And again, we've done a couple of really nice restaurant projects with a result of being reservations going out 2, 3, 4, 10 weeks, and average meal tickets going up, people staying longer, ordering that other bottle of wine. So we've got some really good examples of how restaurants can be great clients. I'm encouraging you to look at it as that. And here's some examples of some of the things that can be done to improve the overall aesthetics of hospitality and restaurant places. All right, deep breath. Now we've taken a little bit of time talking about the physics of sound. We started to get that. We've applied some of that to areas where we work in, whether they be office, education, healthcare, hospitality. Now let's spend some time crafting solutions. And this is the important part. This is where the rubber meets the road. One of the most important things to do in providing acoustic solutions is to determine how much highly rated acoustic material is needed in a space. And we've put this easy button on our website landing page. We call it the acoustic calculator to help you determine how much acoustic material we need to apply in the space to eliminate the echo and the reverb and to increase acoustic comfort. We start with trying to figure out the dimensions of the space. We need the room length and the width and the ceiling height. And we put those dimensions, in this case, 12 by 24 with a 9-foot ceiling, into our calculator. We hit the calculate button and we instantly get a range of the range of material needed to improve the acoustics in the space. In this case, we need a minimum of 65 square feet and an optimal amount of 83. Well, how come the range? Well, the range takes into account all of the variables of the space. Is there carpeting on the floor? Is there an ACT ceiling? What are the walls like? Is there a table and chairs? Is it soft seating? Is there flat screens? So basically, we start, particularly given the client, if there isn't any carpeting and no ceiling, we'll start towards the upper end, towards the optimal range. If there is carpeting in the room and an ACT ceiling, maybe we'll start at the lower end. I used to tell clients, actually still do, that we'll start on the lower end and add material until our ears and our wallet are happy. So now we've got this range of material that's needed in square feet, but we've also taken it the next step. We've already determined what kind of product mix would be possible and in what quantities. And you can see here that this is an either or. We need 12 of these or 12 of those, or 8 of the L panels, or 6 of the wall panels, or 5 of the villa walls. You see how that works. And all you need to do in each one of these cases is click on the view product options, where I've got a couple highlighted in red arrows, and you'll immediately be taken to the product data sheets, where you'll see all of the options, all the different sizes, shapes, colors, configurations are available to you. So this is a great starting point. But let's say that we want to do something different. Now that we know the amount of square footage that's needed, we can go and take a look at every one of our products and determine the square footage of each and how many are needed. So whether they're Echo Deco wall panels or baffles or wall tiles, we can determine how much is needed and quickly translate that into a list price proposal. And you can see how easily and quickly it's done. The real magic is it starts with using the acoustic calculator to get you down to this point. Okay, here's a pro tip that I want to share with you. A lot of studies have been done to determine that it's not as important where you put the products, the acoustic panels, as it is having the right amount of acoustic material in the space. Again, it's not as important where as it is how much. That's the key in providing acoustic comfort for your clients. You know, we got involved with this acoustic product portfolio pre-COVID, and we continue to develop it over the last couple of years. And here you can see a variety of different options, whether they be freestanding, furniture wrap, wall mounted, ceiling suspended, and you can see the variety of different products that we have. The other interesting thing to note is that orange, red, and gray wall in the upper right-hand corner is not a series of shapes and sizes that are in our portfolio, but working with a designer and the local rep, they sent us a list of what's needed, and we created it from there with an application template to apply during this long haul. So keep that in mind as well. Putting my old dealer hat back on, if I can figure out a way to differentiate my proposal from someone else's to maybe customize it, I've got a leg up and chances of winning improve. And the ability to customize your acoustic application or solution is very unique with us. We have what I haven't seen anywhere else in the industry, the ability to customize our acoustic tiles. So although we're not a signage company, as you can see, we're very good at custom designing acoustic tiles. So whether they be in a distinct shape of Texas in this case, or flags or logos, keep that in mind as a great way to help you differentiate your proposal from anyone else's. We were working with a West Coast bank, and they had waves as part of their logo, and the dealer created a wall, an acoustic wall that incorporated the waves in our wall tiles. The end user was ecstatic. The dealer won the business, and everybody was happy. So keep this in mind: the ability to customize your acoustic products. So, okay, as we run through this proposal, I'm sure you've encountered a number of questions. Here are some common ones that I just want to pop up there and give you some quick answers to. Does thickness or size matter? And going back to remember how acoustic panels work, the ability to change sound energy into motion into heat and then dissipate that heat. So yeah, the thicker the material, the usually more effective they are at dissipating the heat. So both size and thickness do matter. It's also interesting to note that typically the thicker the panel, the higher the NRC rating, because again, they're more efficient in radiating the heat away. It's also interesting to note that the higher the NRC rating, the less material that's needed. So it has an economic benefit as well. Do holes matter? You know, you saw an awful lot of our panels with holes cut into them. So yeah, the holes do matter for both absorption and dissipating the heat standpoint, but you also saw an awful lot of our patterns with a backing panel on it. So not only do we reestablish the original NRC rating, we oftentimes will increase it because we've added to the thickness. So do holes matter? Yes, and I would encourage you to put them on the wall or back them with a full solid sheet. Does placement matter? We just talked about that. Not really. It's more important to have the right amount than where we put them. Are there other formulas available perhaps on the internet to determine how much acoustic material is needed on a wall? And the answer to that is absolutely. And in fact, we've checked our acoustic calculator against a couple of these internet-based system or these formulas. And what you'll find is those formulas are asked very detailed question: how thick the drywall is, what's the coverage of the ceiling, how thick is the ACT, how much metal, what's the thickness of the glass. And what's interesting to note is that we are within 10% plus or minus of what these very sophisticated, very elaborate calculation formulas are. But if you run into somebody and they've already got their own estimation of how much material is needed, know typically where they're coming from. Also, have a great deal of confidence that we're typically within 5 or 10% plus or minus. Can dust dividers be used as acoustic treatments? Yes, absolutely. Again, we don't care where you put them, so long as we have the right amount. And oftentimes, in long desking situations, they're the only place where we really can put acoustic material that are in close proximity to the end user. So what's the clap test? We've used the clap test, and the industry has, to demonstrate echo and reverb. And basically you walk into the place, particularly effective with you've got the client, and clap real loud. Because our voices are all of different levels and volumes, different frequencies. The clap is the best way and the easiest way to demonstrate how much echo or reverb is in the place. So keep that in mind, and we're going to walk through what I have found to be a really successful sequence of presenting and closing acoustic projects. If at all possible, do the calculations ahead of time. This will give you an idea of the challenge in front of you. And if you can, bring as many acoustic panels as you can to the call. Now, all of our regional reps will have acoustic demo kits with them. So they're a great resource to call to go with you on these calls, on these trips, these customer visits. If you can, find the smallest space that exhibits the acoustic issues that you can in your client's office. And again, go back to the thought, since we're starting with the dimensions, the larger the space, the more material is needed. Conversely, the smaller the space, the less that's needed. And since we're going to be limited in how much acoustic samples we can bring with us, the smaller the space will better prove the concept of the material being introduced, improving the overall sound quality. So find the small space you can. Leave the products in the demo bag or out in the hall. Enter the space typically where the client is best and use the clap test. And everybody will recognize how echoey the place is. Disperse the panels throughout the space. Try to get them up at eye level if you can. Again, since we've got limited amount of acoustic panels, they're more effective if they're in the range where the bounce is going to happen most often. So put them on chairs, chair rails, tabletops, anywhere that you can. But if you get them up off the floor, the better. Now, here's the killer step, and I don't want you to miss this one. After we've had conversations in the space with the acoustic panels out, our ears grow accustomed to the new level of acoustic comfort very, very quickly. So here's the killer step. Take them down, take all the panels, put them away, put them out in the hall. And once the client realizes that they go back to what it used to sound like, oftentimes they'll basically say, yeah, we can't live this way. We need to move on this as quickly as we possibly can. So again, demonstrate how the room acoustics can be improved, and then remove them from the space and remind everybody what it used to sound like. All right. There's an awful lot of resources dedicated to helping you capitalize on the opportunities that you find. The first is your local MergeWorks reps have been extensively trained. We're working through a certification process for all of them, and I would encourage you to use them and take them with you on some of these acoustic calls. We have a variety of resources dedicated to acoustics located on our website. Certainly, you can see how the acoustic calculator can be used, but also all the product knowledge, shapes, sizes, colors. We've just released a white paper that basically follows this whole presentation through with additional information that's available to you and to your clients. We've just completed a before and after video that actually walks through those 6 steps that we just talked about. The slide decks are available, and certainly I'm available for additional training, consulting, call prep, or debrief. If you get into a situation that you think is a little bit more elaborate or complicated, please don't hesitate to give me a call or send me an email. And I'm available to actually make in-person sales calls for the right opportunities. Don't ever hesitate to let me know and invite me. Here's a copy of the white paper. Again, it's on our website and can be downloaded currently off the website. And again, our goal is to make you an acoustic expert. And having done this for about the last 6, 7, 10 years, I can share with you that there are not very many people on the contract furniture dealers rep side that have a comfort and a confidence of being able to address acoustic challenges from their clients. So this is a great opportunity to get into new business, competitive clients, and to solve problems that almost all of your clients will experience. So with that, we'll try to pop open any questions that may exist. And again, I appreciate you spending time with us today. And if we can be of service, please don't hesitate to contact anybody here at MergeWorks. Thanks for spending time with us.